Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We're joined by Martin Brown, who's known to many of you who live and breathe biophilic design. He's sustainability provocateur and consultant. He's also author of Future Restorative, published by Reba. He's also co-editor of various things, including Restored 2030. He's vice president at Living Future Europe, and he's also founder of Zoom Regenerative, which is the global conscious collective that reciprocates and invigorates cross-pollinating regenerative practices for a healthy living future. And he's also a living future hero. But most importantly, he's going to be speaking at our conference, our Biophilic Design conference on the 12th of November at the Barbican in London. So do book your tickets on biophilicdesignconference.com, where he's going to be talking about kinship. Anyway, Martin, many thanks for joining us today.
It's a real pleasure, I've been watching your other podcasts, and it's delight to be here and have a conversation. Yeah,
lovely. Well, maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about you.
That will probably take the whole hour, but I'll try not to. Yeah, so I'm based in Lancashire, and I'm on the edge of an area called the Forest of Bowland, and I'm sure that will pop up in our conversation as being an inspiration for what I'm doing at the moment, nature, etc. In fact, I took my consultancy name, Fair Snake, from a hill you can see somewhere over the back there. So that was what, 2000, 2001, something like that. And at that stage, not necessarily knowing where I was going to go. I'd moved out of main contracting into consulting. And so having a sort of a neutral name, something from the local landscape, seemed to fit. But yes, so who am I? It's sort of the career. If you'd asked me decades ago, I'd have been a project manager, then a business improvement director, then a quality manager, then a technical manager. And we go through all these things. I'd been a consultant, which morphed into being a sustainability consultant, and then regenerative consultant. And so it's very difficult to put a label on what I actually do at the moment. The word provocateur actually came from a sort of a TEDx thing I was doing one awards evening. And I was just asked, how would you introduce yourself? I said, sustainability consultant. Well, no, we can't have that. That's not funky enough or whatever. So a quick brainstorm, we came up with the word provocateur and that sort of stuff. And that's enabled me to sort of politely and uncritically just provoke people into thinking differently, which I've liked. I think now, though, I'd consider myself more as a guide, helping people through what is now a very rapid changing agenda, whether we're looking at regenerative, biophilia, carbon. Yeah, there's so many threads there. So hopefully bringing my experience into guiding people through. Yeah. So I probably need to change my title from provocateur to guide. It's probably a bit softer.
Oh, I like provocateur.
yeah, it works for some. And probably like yourself, you call yourself different things depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And what people are looking for. So,
yeah, exactly. You've got to speak the language, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what got you into? So what was the inspiration for for nature? What was the nature connection?
Yeah, it's always been there. Early days in scouting, and then moving through caving, climbing, alpinism.
Which one? Alpinism.
Climbing in the Alps.
Oh, alpinism. Oh, yeah. Alpinism. Right. Yeah.
So what do you think?
No, sorry, I didn't know harp in it. I was like, what are you playing harp up in the mountain?
Alpinism, yeah.
Alps.
And
oh my goodness,
a
wow.
couple of trips to the Himalayas, etc. So that's always been there. And more than sort of softer things of bird watching and time in nature, etc. But it's been there, but it's been separate. And as you go through that sort of career of project management and business improvement, etc., it's sort of two halves to the person, two halves to me. And I think over the last 10, 20 years or so, it's become easier to combine those and pull experience from time in nature and doing all those wonderful things in the mountains with where the built environment's going. So that's probably led into regenerative thinking and led into the whole biophilia thing. And whereas before, as a project manager running a site, you were looking forward to the Friday to get away to the hills. now you can combine the two, and I think that's brilliant. And it's a story I'm hearing from a lot of other people, feeling more comfortable in bringing their personal life into the whatever work life they may be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, as well, I think after lockdown, particularly, I think where people were working from home, they had more choice. They could go out and do what they wanted to do. But the whole nature connection, where they could get outside, and even everybody sort of literally run for the hills. They run for green. They run for that. That
exactly. And yeah, in terms of sort of encouraging people to think differently, which I guess is the idea that after a hard day's work on a construction site or in a design office, we get out and we go for a walk.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of starting point for a conversation. Why can't we do that during the work time? We're taking work home for the weekends. But then that's sort of now accepted. But we feel guilty if we stop work at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and go for a 2-hour walk.
Yeah.
Your boss is asking, where's your billable hours listed?
Yeah. Yeah, and the fact that you're more productive when you come back, it's proven, isn't it, that even if you're still stuck at your desk for an hour or so, your productivity slightly wanes. So you need to have these breaks, these micro breaks. You need to get out. It's why it's so important.
That's right. And to bring that sort of outdoor activity into, first came across that, I did a load of benchmarking stuff and ended up as fellow of a benchmarking institute. So that was bringing different organizations together so we could learn from the post office, or we could learn, probably not a good example, but we could learn from oil companies, or we could learn from different processes. We started meeting in people's offices or in hotels. Bland, they're all identical.
Yeah.
But to actually go for a walk along a beach or through the forest, etc., as part of the meeting was incredibly powerful. So, and I think that time, probably late 1990s, early 2000s, persuaded me that value of starting to merge the two. But was still seen as a bit wacky those days. You're doing what?
Yeah, exactly. And I was at the NHS doing green prescribing. It's gradually becoming a bit more mainstream. It's still not on some doctors' lists, as it were, but I think it's getting there. But
I think that there's lots of threads now, and something which is fascinating me, probably the end of our conversation should be, but how do we weave all these threads together, be it biophilia or carbon? As a project manager or director, you've got a lot to weave together.
I mean, I think as well, if you're a designer or an architect or planner or whatever it is, or advisor, consultant, and you're trying to persuade basically the people with the checkbooks to install your plants or to have a different way, like even a work-life balance, all this kind of thing, unless they can feel it and experience it, it's hard to educate somebody and hard to kind of reveal to them the benefits. You can show them all the data till the cows come home, and you need to have the data, but then unless they've seen it, felt it, and experienced it,
absolutely. And whether that's directly or second through good storytelling.
Yes.
We ran a regenerative sustainability series of modules for housing associations last year, maybe the year before, which we ended up calling From Surviving to Thriving. And based on that, a number of the organizations taking part started to allow their staff time to go for a walk, to find time in nature. And that sort of came about by just exposing. We had nature away days, which included actually going out on a boat from Brighton to the offshore wind farms, or a day in Kew, or a day in a forest, etc. That was So we had those senior managers from the housing association. Okay, there's something here. I feel energized. So maybe I can let my staff do things like this, and they feel energized.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did actually love that title, Surviving, From Surviving to Thriving, not only for the tenants and residents of housing associations, but for their staff and their businesses.
I think we should adopt that for every single bit of planning that we do, actually, particularly in the NHS, but also in schools as well, so that the kids can have like not just go there and just churn out numbers and stuff, but actually thrive as well, and
Yeah,
then take that with them. So next
yeah,
generation as well. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's biophilic design then.
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
biophilic design for you?
How to define that? That's a tough question. I was trying to think actually in preparation for when I first came across the concepts of biophilia and biophilic design, and it may well have been through ILFI and the Living Building Challenge and that type of thing, or just in the space I was at. I started to include it in some of the talks and stuff I was doing, and the expression came along. It's a secret source to sustainability. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can sprinkle sustainability with biophilia thinking and our innate relationship with nature and all that nice stuff, then our husbandry and behaviors, etc. And there was lots of research around at the time to think, yeah, if we work in a building with nice connectivity with nature and nice plants, nice views, and all the good stuff, we're more likely to switch the lights off when we leave, or we're more likely to take care of the resources we're using. And so I think biophilia, rather biophilic design, was that sort of gateway to try to attract more people and gain attention. And the first real biophilic design project I did was with a construction company who are remodeling their offices in Manchester. This is Manchester and Cheshire Construction Agency. And I was doing some improvement lectures with them and included biophilia. So, right, we love this talk. Yeah, let's talk more. And we ended up redesigning their reception and some of their common areas around biophilic design. This is probably 2013, 2014 or so. But the real power of that, apart from people's attention, biophilia, that's a really sexy sounding word. I need to know more. So it's nice. But the real power is a lot of the architects they've been trying to reach and talk to about future work. We're now knocking on the door. Can we see what you've done?
Yeah.
So it was a brilliant business card. And looking back now and going back to visit, there was nothing special about it. Yeah, it was a living wall with a TV set into it. Yeah, textured wood paneling. It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
And I think this at the time there was no additional cost in doing that over doing a standard refurb. And so I think that got me thinking more about biophilia and biophilic design, and obviously aware of Kellett and 14 patterns, and formed a good friendship with a chap called Joe Clancy, who was involved in writing the 14 patterns. And it must have been around the same time we were starting the Living Building Challenge project here in Lancashire. So I invited Joe down, and we sort of did a day's biophilic training. And that was wonderful. So we had users of the project was Curtin Valley Park, which was a country park. So we had people from who were users of the park. We had the clients, we had the architect, Barbara Jones, as you probably know from the Straw Bell. Yeah. And we just explored the whole thing around biophilia. There's a brilliant workshop that sort of locked, okay, there's mileage in doing this. That was all around that 2014, 2015 time. And I don't think biophilia has moved on too much in terms of biophilic design. We're still putting those same things that Manchester and Cheshire may have put in. We're still doing the same stuff. It's good. And I do worry with a lot of these things. They go through that that cycle. There's great excitement, etc., and then it wanes off. Either that could be because it's become embedded and we do it, and move on to the next thing, or it's just become a sort of a greenwashing buzz that we have a plant or we have a view behind us, and suddenly we're biophilic. So I think those in the biophilic design space have really got to sort of ask better questions. Where we need to be going. And it's it's putting those plants in the building. That's absolutely brilliant. I'm not knocking that at all, but we can go a lot deeper.
Yeah.
And reconnect with what's around us and what's come before us and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And you think about the future of biophilia. I know it was one of your sort of prompts for later, but in some ways I'd like to see it, the word dropped, and we just do better buildings. We do better buildings that heal people in the environment.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of biophilia and connectivity with nature and regenerative and connectivity with place, we just do it. We don't need to put a label on.
Yeah.
I do think if we put a label on, there are people out there who would expect to pay more for that and therefore wouldn't.
Yeah.
Or there are people who charge an extra. Yeah, we can give you a standard design, or we can give you a biophilic design.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a label. Give us more money. Yeah.
And the basic design's full of toxic materials.
Yeah.
It's going to harm you.
Yeah.
Or for more, you can have a.
Yeah. But at the core, really, we're talking about ethics and making the right choices. We always have options, and when we buy furniture or textiles, we should really consider where they come from. Who's sourcing them. It's easy to turn a blind eye. It's just like when we shop for food. We can choose to ignore the impact of our choices. I try to avoid plastic bags like the plague, and I prefer to support farm shops when I can. I think mindsets are shifting, but I think, as you said, it's part of human nature to go in cycles. I think we might feel like activists 1 minute, but then life happens, and then we find ourselves grabbing a plastic wrapped sandwich without thinking twice.
Yes, we're doing that all the time, aren't we?
Yeah.
You go to a biophilic design workshop hosted by an architect, and the plastic cups on the table.
I know. Come on, people.
Exactly.
I was going to ask.
Interesting what you say about ethics, and
the
the current theme for the Zoom regeneratives is around finding the soul, or finding our soul in the built environment.
Nice.
And I think that's interesting. We can talk about that. I can talk about that with a degree of comfort now, whereas 5-10 years ago, if you start talking about soul and construction, what you want, sort of thing. But I think a lot of people join the industry for very different reasons. I joined because of surveying and because of the technical aspects of construction. That's changed over time. But I guess a lot of people are joining at the moment because of ecology, or sustainability, or doing something for the climate, or project management. But speaking of people, they don't have the chance to really activate that. Join.
Yeah.
The longer they sort of get absorbed into the culture of an architect's practice or a construction practice. So Zoom Regeneration just asking that question: how can we refine that soul? Where is it? So we have some wonderful events around storytelling, around sensitivity, HSP people, about all sorts of wonderful things within the built environment and outside.
Nice.
And I think at some point, some we put into the regenerative playbook. It's all about regenerative. It's all about asking better questions, asking better questions of ourselves, and asking better questions of suppliers and the clients and the people we employ. Then we'll get better solutions. But we need to find the time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask you something first. I'm actually going to jump ahead to Kinship. I know that you're going to be speaking about that at the Biophilic Design Conference, just another plug halfway through the podcast, on the 12th of November at the Barbican, biophilicdesignconference.com. So, but let's go back to Kinship, the soul of a place and a space, and nature and us and all that responsibility and all this stuff. Can you maybe expand a little bit on, what Kinship is and what you mean by that?
I'm fascinated by this sort of notion of deep time and everything that's gone before us, which makes us who we are, where we are, the places we're. And there's some wonderful writing which has inspired me. Robin Wall Kimmerer being one of them, and others who I think that they're able to highlight that indigenous thoughts into our Western mindsets, and that just not just for me, but for a lot of people, that just switches on light bulbs and opens lots of doors. And I think the whole idea of kinship is what it gets slightly spiritual, but not religious, but spiritual, and learning from other cultures. That another element of nature may have been an ancestor in the past.
Yeah. Yes.
Or that deer you saw on driving to work this morning could be your grandmother. Yeah, that sort of your past grandmother in another life, and whether you sort of accept that or not, but it just puts a lot of things into very different contexts. And we talk about connectivity with nature, and we talk about better relationships with nature, but there is this much deeper stuff around. And I'm not saying we all have to sort of really adopt a kinship mode, but by asking those questions, it's pretty powerful. Robin Wall Kimmerer talks about it being dishonorable to talk about items in nature as it's a nice tree, it's beautiful sunset, etc., but to actually give it some sort of identity. So she's suggesting the word ki. And yeah, sure, it's great, but get to learn their names. So you learn the name of the tree, the plants, etc. And that's a way of having a better relationship with nature. And in terms of biophilic design, you bring a plant, put it in the corner. If you knew its name and you gave it an identity and you talk to it, which we do, you have a very different relationship.
It's true. We form connections with our pets, and animals and life of all kinds, whether it's cats or dogs, and that relationship is really significant. There's it's still a bond to a living thing. There's a photographer named Tim Flack who created this really impactful book, Endangered. And his work raises awareness about the extinction of the natural world and promotes the idea of a more than human relationship with nature. He photographs animals in a way that makes them appear almost human and even beyond human, which evokes empathy in viewers. And it is the images are absolutely amazing, how he lights them and everything. But his images aren't just about familiar animals like monkeys holding their young, but he captures creatures like armadillos in such a really beautiful and intriguing manner that they inspire compassion. And when we feel empathy for something, whether it's a plant we've named, like you just mentioned, or an animal we admire, it really leads us to act differently. And obviously, as a photographer, I know the power of imagery, and a picture can speak 1,000 words. And when we see something moving on the news, it motivates us to take action. What you're advocating, though, is that that same mindset shift encourages us to view the natural world around us through that empathetic lens.
Exactly. And as you hinted at, it's about how we feel about these things. Not just there's the expression, what does good look like? What will good look like? Because we're not going to be part of it. We're just going to design it and stand aside. But if you ask the question, what will good feel like? We're there, we're experiencing it, and all that. There's a lot about that sensing. Earlier this year, around May time, we had a fantastic Northern Lights Aurora Borealis storm. I think it's across most of the UK, but real treat. You didn't have to go to Iceland or Norway to see this. So we were up on the local fell watching it. Absolutely beautiful. Watching all these sky dancers and things. I did a post on this on Regen Notes. I was up there the following morning because it's only half a mile from here, so I walk there up quite often. And the amount of litter. There were thousands of people there. All go, oh wow! But the following day, the amount of litter was there, and we had this disconnect between pretty lights in the sky and the whole cosmos thing, and we still drop our sandwich wrappers. So that disconnect isn't quite there. And in that Regen Notes article, I sort of looked back, did a bit of research of how previous ancestors and indigenous people would have explained it. And that they were gods and they were goddesses and they were sky dancers. To us they're pretty lights and just throw the can of Coke in the hedge. It's kinship has lots of different connotations. And actually that evening we got back here, that's about 2 a.m. And just across the road on the village green, there's a village cross. And there's a chap just sat there watching that went and chat. We had a brilliant chat about how would we explain this knowing what we know to someone 500 years ago when the cross was created. I think just asking those questions and getting that
for me, that's the essence of biophilia. It's that connecting with life and living systems, recognizing that everything around us, even rocks, have energy. Everything is in motion and has an electric current. It's about reconnecting with that. We may have veered off a bit, but it's all related.
It's all important though, isn't it? Where we're going with regenerative or biophilia, it must start to encompass all these things. The next session we have on Zoom regenerative is about sensitivity and hypersensitive people. The people who feel real pain when they see a tree being chopped down for whatever reasons it may be chopped down, but they actually feel that real pain. I feel angry, but not a pain as seeing a loved one hurt or what. And do future biophilia design teams or regenerative teams, project teams, or just normal organization now need to bring that neurodiversity into the team? Going back to business improvement days when we did Belbin dream teams, you had the completer, finisher, and you had the shaper, etc. All very mechanistic. Now we probably need a bit of that, but much more tuned into sensitivities and tuned into people who see things and feel things in different ways.
If you look at our hospitals and prisons, they operate like factories, focused on outputs and efficiency. And even though we're in a digital age now, where the opportunities to be digital nomads and embrace these new ways of working, we're still stuck in that old industrial mindset. Perhaps it's time to hit the reset button.
I think we have pushed that button. I think it's one of those sort of slow start things, isn't it? So it may become sort of a revolutionary type thing as we get closer to the 2040s, 2050s, all those doomsday days. But I think we've pushed the button. As I said, we're now more comfortable about talking about the regenerative feelings within organizations, within construction companies, within housing associations, of clients. It's they get that. And you must see, as I do, all the reports coming out from leading consultants, biophilia, regenerative guide to, there was one this week, Unleashing the Biophilic Revolution, all sorts of, So it's the zeitgeist of the moment. So, I do think we've pushed that button. I just hope whatever is going to drive it takes us in the right direction.
I was at Microsoft in Paddington recently and couldn't help but reflect on the area's transformation. And now with all the trees lining the streets and the vibrant community atmosphere, it really feels alive. For those listening, if you get a chance, I highly recommend visiting Paddington and Paddington Station. It's really, truly beautiful and inspirational. And I know you've worked with British Lands. Martin, could you share a little bit about what you were working on with them for that area?
Yeah, sure. I started working with British Land many years ago, which was really around ISO 14001 and providing that auditing service, which I still do. That's the core of what I do. But I think it's a great example of how you can take a standard that we all have, most organizations have, like 14,000, and actually flip it. So the premise of most 14,000 is, how can we reduce our impact? How can we reduce pollution? How can we reduce the resources we use? How can we reduce waste? How can we reduce carbon? And if you start from that, then all your organization's processes and training and everything you do, culture, is based on reducing. If you switch that ISO to, how can we do better? How can we reuse waste? How can we treat it differently? How can we clean the air rather than pollute the air? And essentially, that's what British Land have done. Their latest sustainability brief includes requirements for regenerative aspects, includes requirements for biophilic design aspects within their buildings. And that is illustrated in the projects that you mentioned around Paddington. And the social community aspect is really key on that. And they talk about livable spaces, green spaces, responsible choices. So, and I don't think British Land are unique in doing that. Others are sort of moving in that direction. There's construction companies I know who sort of, okay, how can we do it differently? How can we flip from just being less bad to doing that more good? They might not know the answers, but that's why we're here in some ways, to guide those people. But yeah, I think when you look at what we are achieving, it's absolutely brilliant. Trouble is, it's just in little pockets all over the place. I think those developers, though, have a huge influence because they use such a wide supply chain, either design, construction, materials. So that's and in many ways, they're probably directed by investors, people who want to live, work, or play in those buildings in 5 years' time, and they're sort of thinking forward, what would that feel like? What would that resident block actually feel like? What would I want in 5 years' time? So that's sort of direction that they're thinking. They're a great organisation to as an example of how we can flip things from less bad to more good. Which is what regenerative is all about in many ways. And biophilia. The sick building syndrome things of the past probably originated because we were going for the cheapest option, the fastest option. But at the same time, how can we reduce waste? So it's a totally different mindset. Now we have something. How can we improve people's health? It's on the agenda. Which is, So 14,001. I started doing that as a project manager. Well, actually, it was 1987 when the Brundtland definition came into being. And I've sort of stuck with that because that's something I can find that common ground with when I talk into particularly construction companies. Okay, you've got 14,000, which is to reduce waste. Okay, let's flip that over. What will that look like? Actually, I mentioned the Brundtland definition, which has been sort of a key bugbear of mine all the way through doing this stuff. That described that to do nothing today to compromise tomorrow's generation. Which sounds brilliant, and most organisations have some variation, derivation of that within their mission statement. But that was 2 generations ago, and the next generation is more compromised than it was back in the 80s. So it's we're not moving forward.
You've I was going to say you've also got this. You're co-founder of Construct CO2.
Yes. That's totally the other end of the scale. So you flip between the soul of construction to measuring carbon. It's all related.
It is,
So Construct CO2 started early 2010, so probably 2012, somewhere around there, as a tool for construction companies to monitor their carbon. The carbon that they are responsible for. So energy used on site, materials being delivered, operatives getting to site managers, all that stuff. And it's been running since. I think we've got 500 live projects in there at the moment. It's an online web tool. But over the years, it's given those construction companies the opportunity to say, look, we're measuring our carbon. And we've been doing it for 10 years, and this is what we're doing, whatever which way chart's going. But there's some interesting things sort of coming out of that carbon productivity, and just looking at carbon in a different way. So, what are we actually achieving for each ton of carbon we emit on the construction project? And that varies immensely. So then you start asking questions about, well, what's the technology? Is it MCC? Is it timber? Is it traditional? Who are the clients? Who are the supply chain? So, that's fascinating. And I think the discussion there is changing as well. We're starting to put more of the wider sustainability into the carbon agenda. I think whoever came up with that, the blinkered approach to carbon, the tunnel vision. You've seen it. It's done the construction, a great service. Oh, there's more to sustainability than carbon. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got a lot of data in construction, and we're just talking to students to start analysing that and look for trends and patterns.
Good.
But that was in being prior to all the big carbon agenda and reports and things coming through, and it's at odds with those in many ways. But not necessarily concerned about that. This is for what the contractor has influence on.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily following a checklist or a standard from somewhere else and just tick it through.
That's really great, because I think it probably lots of companies are so busy trying to health and safety, manage all this other stuff, and box ticking. Yeah.
The data is entered on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Well, it can be any time, daily, weekly. Most likely it's weekly. And then once a month you can look at, oops, look, we've got this huge blip. What's happened there?
Yeah.
Investigate and prevent it next time.
That's really good. That's really good, actually, and it shows you're actually doing the right thing. Especially if you it's more than greenwashing, isn't it? You've got a tool to evidence. It's different, which obviously, hopefully, would win you more clients win you more clients.
Yeah.
So,
I must say that there is a degree of greenwashing. A number of companies do sign up.
Yeah.
And not use construct CO2.
Oh, yeah, and then we'll stick it on there. Yeah.
But then in their bid, we're measuring our carbon on construct CO2.
Yeah, it happens, but like you say, you sort of hope that there's some good ones out there that are actually doing it. So as we near the end, I did want to hear your top 3 pieces of advice for listeners who are involved in building spaces, whether indoors or outdoors. What would you suggest?
To ask more questions, better questions. Probably not to be completely subservient or slave to the building standards, and to ask questions beyond those. So whether you're using BREEAM or Living Building Challenge, or the Living Building Challenge is slightly different because it encourages you to ask questions. Asking questions. In the regenerative playbook, we made a big play of that. What's the sort of deeper questions we should be asking? This is happening. Why is that happening? What and get some root causes of things. But I really appreciate people don't have time to do that. And especially if you're on billable hours and all that sort of stuff, you've got your agenda and you just need to work through these. So I think the other thing, probably more towards employers as well as employees, is to try and find that stolen time. You mentioned TV earlier, the whole social media, where everything's become instant, clip, and all sort of things. It's only a 2-second video. I'll watch that. Oh, there's another one. There's another one. Suddenly an hour's gone. Yeah. So I'm led to believe. But all this stuff is just stealing our time. And as you hinted, without the TV, you can work late into the night, as many of us do. So try and find that sort of, or to give that time and space. And again, going back to that housing association from surviving, we did spend a lot of time looking at meditation and mindfulness practices, and to allow people to do that if they wanted to, within a business situation. So I think probably the 3 things: ask more questions, find the time to do so, reclaim that time, and not be subservient to standards. A brilliant quote popped into mind, and I can't think where it came from at the moment, but the expression along the lines: if you're too busy to spend 20 minutes in nature, you should be spending an hour. Yeah, exactly. That's so true. They said that about meditation, so it's exactly the same. If you're too busy just to do that 20 minutes, then you really need to get out there and just really unwind, because you're so One thing I'm sort of pleased to see, whether I initiated it or not, but through the various audits I do, and I find auditing a brilliant way to get into a project and not just look at compliance, but look at improvements and drop suggestions, etc. Was the idea that within site inductions, and onboarding things with offices. And there's some sort of local map where you can go for green spaces, where you can go to get away from the noise, or find somewhere to relax, or take your lunch, etc. I'm really encouraged now when I visit a site I haven't been to before, a company I've been to, and there in the induction is that not mental health, well-being guide. Here's the local park. Here's a nice little walk you take to this park. Here's a green space we've created on the side of the all that's happening. People are realizing the importance of that, and employers are starting to give that time and space.
I wanted to mention your artistic side, and many people might know that I'm an artist. I do photography, video, sketching, sculpting, printmaking, you name it, basically. For me, being outdoors, with a sketchbook is incredibly freeing. Time was over and just close my eyes and let the sounds of the wind and the smell of the leaves and the crushed leaves sound sort of guide my hand. And I suppose it can come out a bit wild, but it's a beautiful expression and a memory as well, and a different way for me to reconnect with nature. We're actually creating a nature journal with some prompts to help people engage with their surroundings. I'm collaborating with Adil Smith in Italy on this project. But I noticed on your Substack, you shared something about art and sketching. Can you share a little bit more?
Thanks for calling it art. It started during the last year, and then for Christmas I was given some watercolor paint and pencils and stuff. So, and I tried to do that on a sort of daily basis.
Nice.
Just scribble, do something. But I think it's come about by everything we've been talking about, connectivity with nature and all that. And we're out in nature. We take a photo, and it's instant, and it's gone, and it sits in your pile of 30,000 pictures. So I thought, well, okay, I need to learn how to sketch, to watercolor, and just do messes. But they're personal messes because they're of that time of what I was feeling and doing there. So I love taking the sketchbook out and a few paints and just do a quick, and I hope they're getting better. But the other side to that is just trying to get some more techniques and things. There's a whole raft of wonderful people who are sharing things on YouTube and all sorts of stuff. And there's one artist in particular, a chap called Ron Ranson, who passed a while ago, but he's sort of the guru of fast and loose watercolor painting. And so you just give it's not abstract and it's not illustrative art, it's halfway in between, and it's just fast and loose. It's what you're seeing in that moment. And I sort of love that approach. Picked up a few of his books, and it basically saying the same things we've been saying on this podcast and saying in all directions. If you were to paint the skies, you should look at the sky on a daily basis and think, how would I paint that? What colors am I seeing there? And to really paint a tree, you need to sit and study the tree and just be mindful of the tree. That's probably where I want to go. So just playing with that whole watercolor thing. I just love it.
I really admire Ruskin and his beautiful home on Lake Coniston. I'm such a big fan of his writings on nature and that connection to art and nature. I remember reading somewhere, I can't remember the exact book, but he said that he thinks that everybody should sketch, particularly politicians, because it really makes you truly observe, to process, to look at your surroundings, and then the deeper level observation and how you can transform how you approach things.
One thing I've run over the years, and we do it at the biophilic camps, is depends what I call it, but either it's get lost or disconnect and reconnect. So leave your phone behind, and just go for a walk in the forest. And you're given prompts. So the first prompt might be, which direction is the wind blowing, and then move in that direction. Sit still and stay still for 3 minutes. That's very difficult to do without a watch or a phone. But one of the items in there is sketch what you're seeing. It doesn't matter how bad or nobody else is going to see it. Just sketch what you're seeing. And it's interesting when people come back and you do that sort of feedback or a chat over coffee afterwards. That's the thing that people, they also, I found it difficult but incredibly rewarding just to try and sketch something rather than take a photo. The other one they like actually is to lie on the ground and try and perceive nature from a worm's perspective. And you get that, and you think, now I'm thinking, how would I sketch that? Even though I've done that stuff with me, how would I do that? And I look at the sky, well, that's a Payne's grey sky. Or, and a little project I'm doing at the moment, just scribbling around, is what are the colours of autumn leaves? And basically it's every colour, but it's just to sit and think, bit that one, bit that one. Why I particularly like the watercolour aspect, it's the blending of those colours, which nature's doing all the time.
So, Martin, the final question that I ask everybody on the podcast: if you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
What would the world look like? That's brilliant. I think feeling more comfortable, so we get past the eco-anxiety. And we feel more connected to where we are and things in the past. And that's difficult to describe. That we just mentioned those atoms of delight and moments of awe. It's like that all the time, in essence. And health and well-being and happiness is all height. So something I'm working on at the moment. What would feel like 2050 and beyond? And I think it's that feeling comfortable with being part of nature again, rather than have to describe it. But as to the topic of biophilia, if I could put a paintbrush across that, I would get rid of the word, not get rid of, but make it part of what we do. So we create healthy environments which connect to nature and all that nice stuff, rather than forever trying to define it and sell it. And it's just what we do. As you said earlier, it's about being there.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.